morning. Today we are going through the last chapter in Module 4, Selections from the Cry of the Gull, written by Emmanuel Laborit. Let us begin with Emmanuel Laborit. Emmanuel Laborit is a deaf French actress who was born on 18th October 1971. She is the daughter of Jacques Laborit, a famous psychologist, and the granddaughter of Henry Laborit, a famous surgeon. Though she was hearing impaired by birth, she became a famous French actress who appeared in more than 10 French films since 1994. Mariana Ocria, An Air So Pure, Beyond Silence, and Still Libby are some of them. She is married to Jean Darly, a French theatre and cine artist. One of the most distinguishing accomplishments of Emmanuel Laborit is her autobiography, The Cry of the Gull. She begins her autobiography with a simple explanation of the difference that the sign language has made in her life. With the help of sign language, she wrote, "I understood that yesterday was behind me and tomorrow was in front of me." She learned this at the age of 7, and soon after she realized that being hearing impaired could be a positive part of her identity. She was the first hearing impaired French actor to win the Molière Award in the category of Best New Talent. Later, she decided to finish her schooling and fight for the rights of other deaf French people. Her autobiography was an encouraging story for young people everywhere. I also want to connect the life of Emmanuel Laborit with Helen Keller. I know all of you are very familiar with Helen Keller. She was dumb, deaf, and blind. She has influenced the lives of many people in the world. Like Helen Keller, Laborit's autobiography, The Cry of the Gull, is both a revealing and encouraging story for young people everywhere. Now we are going through the introduction of the chapter, Selections from the Cry of the Gull. The last chapter in Module 4, it is Selection from the Cry of the Gull, was an expert from Emmanuel Laborit's autobiography, The Cry of the Gull. In the second edition of the Disability Studies Reader, Leonard J. Darris writes, "For centuries, people with disabilities have been an oppressed and repressed group. People with disabilities have been isolated, incarcerated. Incarcerated means put in prison, observed, written about, operated on, instructed, implanted, regulated, treated, institutionalized, and controlled to a degree probably unequal to that experienced by any other minority group." All of you please take the page number 87 in your textbook. Last paragraph. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 2006 and Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 underscore respect for difference and acceptance of persons with disabilities as a part of human diversity and humanity. in comparison with the other marginalized. The disabled, on account of many socio-cultural reasons, were very late to develop a theoretical framework of their own to articulate their issues and to create self-defining perspectives. Now we have a very challenging academic discipline called disability studies to fill in this gap. As a body of knowledge, disability studies not only articulates the real problems, feelings, and aspirations of the disabled community, but it also tries to voice the concerns, traumas, anxieties, handicaps, and stereotyping attitudes that really pose questions on the very existence of the community as a result of the wrong social model and absolute patronizing discourses prevalent in both developed and developing countries in different ages. It aims at clarifying the difference between various terminologies such as impairment, disability, handicap, and different ability, which are indiscriminately used by the scholars and activists while referring to the disabled. Now we have a challenging academic discipline. It is known as disability studies. By using disability studies, they can articulate their problems, feelings, and also their strong desire to achieve. They can also share their concerns, unpleasant experiences, anxieties, handicaps, their unfair attitudes, etc. One of the reasons why society failed constantly to feel the real issues or world of the disabled was due to the lack of their own literature. When the other marginalized were wrongly constructed and represented, it was through literatures giving emphasis to their experiences that they challenged them. Similarly, one of the main strategies of the modern disability studies activist is to produce authentic and original literature, both sociological and theoretical, and creative and autobiographical, to reveal the real world of the disabled and to challenge the grip of the imposed world. When we examine the life of disabled people, we can see that the absence of their own literature. If they have their own literature, they can easily communicate with the world. This expert is also published in the second edition of the Disability Studies Reader, edited by Leonard J. Davis and published by Routledge in 2006. In this narrative, she opens up many issues like the struggle of the disabled to survive, parental attitude, need for the right training, and varying social attitudes. Other than being an eye-opener to many about the world of the disabled, it can also function as a great piece of motivation. In a broad sense, one can call it a disability narrative. Through this autobiography, Laborit speaks about the struggle of the disabled to survive, parental attitude, need for the right training, and varying social attitudes. Let us start the chapter. Selections from The Cry of the Girl. I already told you it is an autobiography of Emmanuel Laborit. She is talking about her childhood. When she was a child, she started to scream. Scream means make a very loud, high sound. Actually, she was not hungry, thirsty, and afraid. She didn't have any pain. Then why she screamed out? Because she wanted to talk. She wanted to hear at least her sound. That's why she says, I was making weren't rebounding back to me. Rebounding means bounce back after hitting with something. She couldn't talk. At the same time, she couldn't get the sound which she made. She could feel only the vibrations. She knew it well. She was screaming. But her parents didn't recognize that. When Laborit made the sound, it penetrated the ears of her parents. Her sound was just like a seabird gull. Have you seen gull? Gull is any of various chiefly coastal aquatic birds of the family Laridae, having long wings, webbed feet, a thick, slightly hooked beak, and usually grey and white plumage. That's why her parents nicknamed her Maud. Maud means seagull in French. I already told you. Laborit always screamed. So her parents called her as Maud. Laborit continued her screech. But no one understood that she couldn't hear and she couldn't talk. When Laborit was a child, she was very beautiful baby. Her mother says it was an easy birth. She was a very small child. Her weight was just 7 pounds 11 ounces. When she was hungry, she started to cry. The rest of the time, she laughed. And she babbled like other babies. Babbled means talk foolishly. We are very familiar with the word babbled, blah blah blah. Okay. Anyway, her mother reminds well when she was a baby, she was always very happy. She well behaved. She also shared one of the experiences how she behaved. When her parents spent the time with their friends, they played the music in the living room. Baby Laborit was sleeping in the next to the room, but she slept well without any disturbance. Even the music was playing loudly. At the moment, all of them commented that she was a very good baby. But no one recognized she couldn't hear and she couldn't talk. She could feel the vibrations. That's why when her father put on record, she would dance in her playpen, swaying back and forth. She was also swinging her arms and legs. Actually, she recognized the vibrations, not the music. Based on the vibrations, she started to dance. Then the next paragraph, she shares her own experiences. She could remember well when she was a baby, just like other babies, she couldn't say the words mama and dada. She didn't say such words because she could only understand the vibrations on the floor. That's why she always made the music just like a seagull. That's why she says she was a observant little seagull. She comes from a seafaring family. Seafaring means working on a ship. So she came from seafaring family. Her mother's father, grandfather, and brother were among the last of the Cape Horn sailors. Cape Horn sailors, it already given here in your textbook, page number 92. A headland of extreme southern Chile in the Tierra del Fuego archipelago, the southernmost point of South America. It was the first rounded in 1616 by the Dutch navigator William Schouten, who named it after his birthplace, Hoorn. It is notorious for its storms and heavy seas. I think all of you remembered well. Her parents nicknamed her as Mute. Here, mute look and sound practically the same. Mute. I think all of you are very familiar with the word mute. Mute means without sound. So the nickname was very apt for her because she couldn't speak and hear. Uncle Fifo, her father's older brother, was recognized the reality Laborit couldn't hear. He stated that Laborit makes such high voice because she can't hear herself. When Laborit's mother listened the words of Uncle Fifo, she became frozen in her mind. No mother will be happy when hears such a bad news. Like other parents, her parents were not at all ready to believe it. Then later, she already recognized that her paternal grandparents had been married in the chapel of the National Institute for the Deaf in Bordeaux. Paternal means relating to father. Relatives of father, we can call them as paternal. When she became grown up, she identified that her paternal grandparents had been married in the chapel of the National Institute for the Deaf in Bordeaux. From that we can identify it may be hereditary. What's more, the institute's director was her grandmother's stepfather. Anyway, her parents didn't take it very seriously. Avoid the problems in their lives. Deliberately, they forgot the connection with the hereditary. I think all of you remembered well. In our last chapter, we already went through the lives of Bette Belvin and her mentally retarded child Arnold. When Arnold's father recognized him as a mentally retarded child, he left them. But here, Laborit's parents were very supportive to her. They didn't make any family problems relating this issue. They didn't talk about the hereditary. They didn't think about the paternal grandparents. Her parents were very happy with their child, Emmanuel Laborit. Even Laborit had the habit to make loud noise. They took it in the right sense. But they nicknamed her as Seagull. They gave maximum support to their daughter, Emmanuel Laborit. Laborit had the habit to repeat the words. She was very good observer. She started to observe how her parents utter the words. Later, she started to imitate it. But when she tried to pronounce the word, it became screaming. But her parents never showed their anxiety in front of her. Her parents consulted Laborit to a pediatrician. Who is pediatrician? A doctor who is capable of treating infants and their diseases. The pediatrician thought Laborit was crazy. Crazy here means mental illness. The pediatrician couldn't understand. She couldn't speak and hear. When the pediatrician consulted Laborit, we can see that Laborit started to react normally to sounds. Actually, Laborit didn't recognize the sounds. She could easily recognize the vibrations. Based on the vibrations, she responded. Unfortunately, the pediatrician didn't understand that. When her parents clapped their hands just behind her, Laborit turned her head in the direction of the noise. But when her parents called her name, she didn't respond. Laborit's mother had confusions after the consultation of the pediatrician. So she started to test her. Her parents clapped their hands next to her or behind her. At the moment, she turned her head in the direction of the noise. But when her parents called her name, she didn't respond. When her mother used to walk up to her, she seemed so surprised, she would practically jump. At the moment, her mother felt that Laborit can easily understands the presence of her mother. That's why her mother felt the doubt about the disability of Laborit. Her mother felt it may be the psychological problem. Anyway, the pediatrician was not at all ready to accept that Laborit couldn't speak and talk. More than that, Laborit's parents had a lot of confusions relating the life of Laborit. Laborit's mother wanted to consult the same pediatrician because she wants to get the clarification relating her concerns. When they consulted the same pediatrician, she just closed the door forcefully. At the moment, Laborit turned her head in that side. Then the pediatrician declared that Laborit can hear. He also added that Laborit's mother should get counseling. The pediatrician was not at all ready to admit that Laborit couldn't hear. He also insulted the parents of Laborit. Laborit's parents were not at all ready to admit the pediatrician's findings. So they started to observe Laborit constantly. They started to whistle, called her, shut the door forcefully. They started to clap the hands. They also noticed how Laborit danced to the music. But her parents couldn't get the proper answer. Still, they had confusions. I think this is enough for today's class. We reached at the page number 90, second paragraph. All of you please go through the textbook well. We will continue the story in our next class. Thank you.